hot in here. Can you adjust that? Can you adjust that? Nothing up there. We need the air con problem. Whatever. Unlock it. You want it? Yeah.
Well, you might want to, just because if it's warm in here, then we might as well be comfortable. So welcome, everyone. It's another full house tonight. I'd like to start with a moment of silence. We've lost 3 of our town residents since we were last here. I can do these in the order of their passing. On April 24th, we lost Albert. His name is Bernie Seibert. He is actually the husband of our Pompey Historical Society president, Ann Shelley. And was a longtime resident of the town for over 50 years. So we lost him. I don't have the actual date on the report. Sal Senior, but Sal Senior. Over a week ago, longtime Pompey resident, farmer on Pompey Center Road. Salt of the earth kind of individual. And then Carol Lawyer, who passed away as well, very recently. Why they don't put the date of death on the picture. But in any event, she just instrumental in supporting the Montessori school approach to learning. Was a longtime resident as well, and very forward. So if we could take a moment of silence for those 3 individuals and for anybody else you wish to remember. Thank you. Yes, we have a phone.
I apologize. Could you please speak up? Very hard to hear you back here.
I'll try.
Thank you.
Because we have a full house again, I'm going to go through the rules of quorum one more time, just to make sure that we're all understanding how we conduct town board meetings, any town meeting. We start with the business part of the meeting, which, well, I guess we're out of agendas over there, but there is an agenda. The supervisor presides over the meeting and preserves order and decorum. No one speaks twice to the same issue unless everyone wishing to speak has had an opportunity. All remarks are directed to the chair and to the town board, not to the audience. Remarks must be courteous in language and deportment and should avoid personal comments and cannot question the members' motives. Supervisor opens the meeting and then conducts the regular business. We don't have a public hearing tonight, so I won't go over that. When we get to public comment, which is at the end of the town business portion of the meeting, the public is allowed to comment on any topic of their choosing. The presiding officer, although I delegate this job to Attorney Tim Fitesky, will call the order of speakers. There is a sign-in sheet over there on the table where there's some other information. And we limit speeches to speaking to 5 minutes. So if you have something to say, try and do it within 5 minutes so that I don't have to interrupt you. And there is to be no other, when someone is speaking, there is to be no other person speaking from the audience. So if your name is called and you're up here, no one else speaks while you're speaking. So that we can have an orderly, respectful process And then make sure that you give your name and where you live, and if it's relevant, if you belong to an organization. I think that's it for public comment and how we proceed. So that said, we're all present and accounted for. It's a very crowded room tonight. I just wanted to take a minute, and I'm going to embarrass him, but to congratulate Tim on the marriages of both of his children last month. His son and his daughter both get married in the month of April. So congratulations. Tim. Nice job on getting it done. All. And it's not on the agenda, so I'll just take the opportunity now because they're both here. For those of you that helped with the cemetery cleanup a couple of weekends ago, it was hugely successful. If you weren't there, you missed the opportunity to see Stan Gorman with his 2 leaf blowers as a human leaf blower, getting rid of the leaves on the cemetery grounds, which were so thick. So Stan, kudos to you, and thank you to the Furdocks who donated the food for that event. That was really generous of you, and it was definitely appreciated. So it was, pardon me? It was a great team effort, and when I left, there were still people there trying to get leaves into the backs of pickup trucks. So, but it really made a dent in the cleanup effort. So, with that said, the first order of business on the agenda is related to the Frank Long Road Tier 3 solar overlay application. If you recall, in March, the meeting that I was not at was the last time the developers presented. And they have been since then working on a stormwater drainage pollution prevention plan, hoping that it would meet with our town engineer, John Dunkel's approval, support, however we want to call it. So they are here tonight because they're ready to present the drainage plan to the board. I just realized, how are we going to move those slides up there? I've got the PowerPoint presentation.
It'll have to be here.
Okay, up on the, you have it in your packet. It's in your, the board has this PowerPoint in their folders. I just want to make sure we can advance the slides when you need them advanced. This is, here are some copies of the PowerPoint. Did you bring copies as well? Or that's not?
They were for them.
Okay, so I'm just wondering if somebody would mind distributing them to anybody who might want them. But there, you also will be able to see it on the screen.
There's also a handout available on the table here.
Okay,
Yeah, for everybody, not for everybody.
okay. So I'm gonna turn, why don't you give me that? I will try. So Veronica's not staying tonight, just so you know. So the task of running the AV somehow going to be given to me. Can you do it from there? Oh, I would so appreciate it. I've been looking for that. You want me to share the screen now or? Yeah. So, and Veronica, I really appreciate that you came to do this under the circumstances.
Allowed her to share the screen with me.
No, it's PowerPoint is there as they present and they need the slide advanced. There's only 4 or 5 slides. It just needs to be advanced on that screen. What Veronica is trying to do is make sure that people Or watching, I was not can see the
Slideshow button on the bottom right. Veronica, when you hit share, did you click the presentation?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what's showing. No, it goes away, but it comes back once we stop sharing.
Oh, maybe slide.
Oh, no.
That one. All right.
Yeah, I got it. And then when you're done sharing,
Sure.
yeah.
This is.
You good?
Are you guys?
Okay. Thank you, Veronica.
Thank you.
It's the. Great job.
So I would ask, the Seaboard representatives to come forward and identify yourselves for the groups and things. The group is going to be presenting.
Yeah, I'm Ryan Clark. I'm the Director of Development for Seaboard.
Bunny Ramsey, Project Manager for Seaboard Solar. And my name is Sean Brazel. I'm the president of Seaboard.
I'm swinging the attorney.
So who's presenting?
I'll start with presentation.
Okay.
So thanks to the board for allowing us to do this today. Last time we met was actually Valentine's Day. And you asked us to put together a comprehensive stormwater management plan in regard to the Frank Long Road solar project, the proposed project. So over the last couple months, we've been working with Mr. Dunkel and engineers at Wendell to design a comprehensive stormwater plan that actually reduces the stormwater runoff through and from our site, through our site, downstream. So let's move on to the next slide. So from the comments from the board and a number of the neighbors, we're well aware of a large stormwater runoff issue related to this area of Pompey. As you can see in the orange on the screen there, that's the proposed project site. And the blue lines around it are the actual property lines of the property we will purchase. The stormwater runoff issue is, if you want to go to the next slide. Has 4 drainage areas. It's hard to see there, but we'll pull this up. There's a drainage area that goes.
Just so you don't have to talk and point. And
Hold it towards you. or-
Well, we have this, so why don't you do it towards the audience?
Okay, yeah, that's good. You can flex. So this is drainage area 1. This is on the Frank Long Road side. This is, from what we understand, the major issue of the stormwater runoff is through 1 and down to this culvert down here on 91. I think this goes through Mr. Heffernan's property, which I know he has some runoff issues. The second major issue area is number 2. So the water runs, uphill from above our site, through our site, downstream into this culvert, which is across from Mr. Fuller's house there. I know he has a number of issues. And then number 3, which is the least issue currently, runs, I guess this would be to the south of our property, runs down to 91. This is the least of the issues. So what we propose to do, you want to pull up the next slide here. So this is the plan. Mr. Dunkel's reviewed it. I don't want to speak for him, but he's in agreement with the overall design. Basically, right, Mr. Dunkel? So the water in storm area one over here that comes down the hill from above our property would be captured in this dry basin pond here. So all the water coming down the hill would be grabbed by this basin here, and all the water that is hitting our site and flowing down would be grabbed by these two basins here. So basically, instead of having a zero impact, this project, you'd actually have a net reduction of water coming through the site. Mr. Dunkel has asked us to do a 10% overall reduction, and we think we can meet and exceed that for this area here. So Mr. Heffernan's house here would see a significant positive impact from a pretty large reduction in water going through the site on this side. Same goes for two. The water that runs through this area here would be captured by these ponds here. And then the water in this area of the project site would be captured by this pond and distributed out over a wider area through swales and level spreaders, which would spread the water out. And then for area three would come through this area, grabbed by these ponds coming down the site. And then all the water that's on our site coming downstream would be grabbed by this retention pond. Again, through the level spreader, which is there's a picture there, would distribute the water out over a wider area. So basically, this entire plan would reduce the runoff from above our site through our site and have a pretty positive impact downstream to Route 91, reducing, potential damage to 91 in the culverts downstream.
Again, my name is Sean Braz. I'm the president of Seaboard. We've got a problem here in search of a solution. The water problem has existed since before you met us. If we go away today, it's going to exist after we leave. And there's no obvious solution. You've got a town that's unable to do something, that the individual homeowners, landowners there that are unable to do anything. And the state apparently is not doing a lot to solve some of the problems when you have stormwater runoff. We're obviously here because we're looking to get a solar farm approved. This is an obstacle for everybody. Our hope is that by finding a solution to this problem, one that we can demonstrate, not just us, but through our civil engineering firm, is backed up by your town board, Mr. Dunkel in particular, who are kicking the tires of this plan and aren't going to approve it if it's not meeting his requirements. But assuming that we have done that, and we'll do that in the final plan, and that this is a stormwater reduction plan that is in fact going to change the nature of the way that water comes down the hill and the speed at which it comes down. As you guys know, if you put something through a garden hose versus a fire hose, the damage that the water does is, two different things. We were across from the second culvert on 91, and it's pretty clear that there's a lot of damage being done when that water is coming down. It's a race when you have a storm event. Our plan calls to significantly improve on the targets that Mr. Dunkel has given us. And what we're asking for tonight is an opportunity to talk in particular to the people who are most directly affected by the stormwater runoff. We want to talk to people that are concerned about the visibility of the solar farm. There's some houses that sit, nearby and above. And we've got plans to mitigate the view so that it reduces any visibility. And all we're asking for is some time to talk to each of you about those issues. If at the end of that, you're not convinced, you're going to tell the board, and the board is going to tell us, sorry, we can't build here. If you give us an opportunity to convince you that maybe we can make a significant improvement, then perhaps you'll let the board vote a different way if they choose to do so. A note about Seaboard. I've noticed your hats. We're a small family-run business in Connecticut. There are 12 of us that work for the company. So I don't want anyone to get the impression that we're some big, industrial conglomerate come from out of town to spoil the beauty of your location. It's stunning here. Our choice of solar farm is really restricted by utility infrastructure and siting. And there are lots of places you wouldn't want to see one when you're driving around. And this is actually a fairly secluded area, not from everybody, obviously. I recognize that. But we believe that of all the way that you can develop property, this is a fairly benign development. It is temporary in nature. And we have been discussing, amongst ourselves and with the current landowners, a possibility of putting this land into some sort of conservation easement when the solar farm has run its life, which would then preserve that land. So there are a number of things we're looking at. I hope you'll give us the time, the board will give us the time, and the townspeople will give us the time to discuss this with people who have an interest. We have a handout that we've selected here that has my contact information, email and phone, Ryan's and Bennett's. You're welcome to contact us at any time. We'd like to come out and, meet at your convenience to discuss this in the next weeks. If you'll allow us.
If you're a direct abutter and you have any effect from the stormwater runoff, we'd like to come over and take a look. See what you're dealing with as well.
I'd like to thank the board. If there are any questions for us from the board, happy to answer.
Well, just full disclosure for the, everybody who's here is that, we did have our mini meetings, if you will, all of the board members, James and I, Bill and Diana. We had 3 session meetings where this was gone over. It's gone over, in detail, and James and I had the fortune of having, John Dunkel there, so understandable. We have not visited the site because of the weather. Last week was just, it was a Wednesday, and if anybody remembers Wednesday, it was cold and rotten and rainy and not the kind of weather that we thought would be conducive to a site visit. So we haven't done that yet. But so if we don't have a whole lot of questions, don't think it's because we haven't asked. We've had our opportunities to ask. The only thing I would ask, maybe you could explain some that first. No. Slide, the second picture slide, the one with the.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you just explain? There's the watershed areas are numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Right.
And then, but there's different colored lines there, dotted lines. So
So I'll
I understand that one of the dotted lines was what used to be and what you're, could you explain that?
This is the existing drainage area.
Which is
So this one here. So these are the existing drainage.
black
lines.
lines,
No, that is, so this is like,
the red.
it's like a whole area here. Each one of you want to explain it better than me.
Blue lines are the time of concentration,
Oh, gotcha.
cutting hydrology.
Okay,
Within each watershed, there's a path. The water
Right,
flows.
there's a passable one.
That's how they define.
so that's the path of the water currently takes or will take.
This is the existing drainage.
Okay. Okay. Oh, right. So it's just, okay. So then.
Your,
Lines just,
Yeah.
presentation, you have the new drainage lines. Yeah. There's a lot of, see it? Yes, this is the new drainage line.
So this is different than what's on there.
That's the existing.
Okay,
That's after the.
okay,
It's a before and after picture.
okay.
So basically what that map there is showing is spreading this out. Grading and moving the water around the site.
Okay, and what does it mean? What's the term dry detention? I mean, when you talk about a detention ponds, I
It's
don't.
gonna be a pond that's dry until there's a stormwater event and then it fills up. And then it slowly releases the water over time after the event.
And are these gonna be,
They're gonna be
Dug
dug down, yes.
and then the depth will be dependent on how you,
The depth will be dependent on Mr. Dunkel and the engineers and the best way to design the calculations.
and so. Is the intent that they don't overflow?
That's the intent, up to 100-year storm.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and then if they do overflow. Those level
Spill.
spreaders.
There's a spillway, I don't know, I don't have the full thing here, like, if it does overflow, there's a spillway, so it still spreads it out, just. It's not gonna be like a fire hose channel, it's gonna spread it out over a larger area.
I just wanted to ask those questions so that the audience could maybe
Mhm.
understand that, because
Okay.
I think some of it is.
And I'm, only because we met with you, you told us, and I mean, from what you just said here, it's not as clear, as near as clear as it was to what, of course, we had in several hours that you
Right.
just gave it to us. But for the people here, the different areas, they're pushing some of the water from the 1 to the 2 to the 3, they're shoving it to the south
South,
to take it further away, but that's what all this.
the grading,
Thing is
moves the
about.
water around the site, correct, along with the ponds.
So to clear it out, that they're kind of trying to redistribute it through grading at a bunch of, in the ponds and everything else.
So the 10% number that he's given us, for reduction doesn't include, saturation.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Can you go up to that map and speak out that way? So.
Okay.
That, because
Sure.
that's the map that everybody can see, I think. It'll be easier for everybody to hear you maybe. You stood up there and explained.
Just in case.
So, this is the project area. And the water is gonna be through grading moved. I guess that would be south.
Mhm.
So this is the largest problem area. So to take water out of this watershed with the ponds, the water is gonna move this way and distribute it out over a larger area.
That's the existing drainage area.
That's the existing.
The red lines show how the water is traveling right now.
Correct.
Okay. And the blue lines show what, John?
The blue lines of the water, the red are.
Blue line is the longest flow path through each watershed.
Okay.
That's the device that's used to calculate the runoff numbers.
So if you pull up this slide,
Which one is that? Okay, that's the next one.
these lines here represent the grading of the site, which changes the water flow of the site.
You hear him?
So these lines is the water coming onto our site from uphill. And it shows it captured by these ponds. And then these arrows are the water that hits the site and based on the grading. Moves the water around the site differently than it does now. These blue lines here is where the water would come off the site, distribute over a larger area.
So, what is it that you would like? What's the next step? I know you,
We would,
mentioned about.
what we would ask the board is to have some time to be able to set up meetings with individuals who are suffering damage because of stormwater runoff now, to discuss this in more detail than we can in this type of a setting, and answer any questions that they have and look at specific cases, because the damage on each of these properties, assuming there's damage on each of the properties downstream of our proposed site, all have unique issues that they're dealing with. And we'd like to make sure that we understand those, discuss what we believe is going to be a positive impact of this mitigation plan on that existing situation. And see where those conversations go. We believe that we, assuming people are kind enough to give us some time to speak with us, we think that we can have these conversations in the next month. At which point, we're prepared to come back and continue with the proposal, because really, we're proposing two things. One, to try to help alleviate issues with stormwater runoff, ensure that people understand that we've got a plan to make sure it doesn't get worse. If I were downstream of this site, I'd be thinking, wow, I don't want somebody coming in here, taking the trees off, and then the whole, thing comes down on us. That's certainly not what's going to happen, but there's an opportunity to discuss it. And then talk about the solar itself. There are a range of other questions that people have had that have nothing to do with stormwater. We've tried to respond to some of them in a small pamphlet that we put here. Encourage you to each take one, and make notes and ask additional questions if we missed something. But what we're looking for is a bit of time to be able to have those discussions. Very simple terms, we'd like to convince you that this is actually a good idea. We may not convince all of you or any of you, but we'd like a shot.
You would like to speak?
Everyone's been telling how I've
Yes.
been involved in all this. So I am the town engineer. And I have the same concerns that everyone else has here, that I think we can acknowledge that changing the landscape from forest to removing the trees and adding impervious surfaces is going to increase runoff. Can't let that happen. So the charge I've given Seaboard folks here is to show us a plan that you're going to be able to manage the extra runoff that's going to come from this project. Choke it down, put it into these big bathtubs with tiny drains, and show that there is a net reduction in the runoff rates. I want to make a point here. The runoff is not reduced. There's not going to be less runoff. It's just the rate of runoff is decreased to a point where it's not detrimental. So we can't make stormwater runoff disappear, but we can manage it and slow it down to a point where it doesn't flood and it doesn't cause erosion. So that was my charge to these folks, and I've worked with them now for probably 4 months, going back and forth on different plans, and I think we're finally at a point where there's a concept here, and that's all it is right now. It's just a concept. This plan has the potential to actually result in a reduced runoff rates down at the critical areas on Route 91. But we're at a very conceptual point right now. And I will continue to review, if this project moves forward, I will continue to review more of the details on how each of these bathtubs or these detention facilities are designed to make sure that, in fact, what they're saying right now is that there will be a reduction. I will hold them to that and will not recommend anything be approved until they meet the standards that they are proposing. But if they do, I can endorse the concept, and I can endorse to the board the fact that this project has been adequately mitigated, the impacts for stormwater. But again, we're only a concept right now. But we can get to I can make sure that these guys get to that point if the project goes forward. Can't solve all the runoff problems down below. It's not, none of us in this room can do that. It's out of our scope. But we can make sure that perhaps we can reduce those runoff rates just a little bit. That's I think a positive move that we can ask these developers to actually do benefit now.
Which we're willing to do at our sole cost and expense. That's part of the project.
Can I don't know who to ask this question, maybe you, John. But feel free if it's you guys. So the last time we had significant rain, my phone blew up with people sending me photographs of, for the most part, Frank Long Road. And what that rain event did to the road, which was cover it with gravel and mud and dirt, and required BR's crew to come in and spend a whole day cleaning up all over town. It wasn't just there.
Week.
Was it a week? Sorry. It was a lot. I drove the whole area to visualize it myself. My question is, I know there's concern about the runoff on Frank Long Road. But from how I'm looking at this, does this project impact Frank Long Road, or is it to the south of it? It seems like when I was on Frank Long Road, most of the mess, if you will, seem to be caused up above, down the road, but I could be wrong, because I'm not an engineer, I'm not an expert, but I'm just wondering if you could address that.
I believe that's mostly true. There's gonna be a little bit of the site that eventually runoff eventually reaches the western portions, the lower portions of Frank Long. But most of the drainage on Frank Long comes from above this project and will not be significantly impacted by it. And what area will be, there's one of the detention facilities proposed there before it leaves the site and reaches Frank. Right,
Yeah.
but most of the damage that you saw on Frank Long Road is not attributed to this property.
It didn't seem that to me when I looked at it, but I wasn't sure what I was seeing.
I would concur.
You're getting a lot of runoffs off the driveways. On Franklin.
And
Usually
the,
follows the driveways down, then takes the shoulder of the road down, so.
that's what I was,
Better defining of the
Yeah.
ditches and that, and some reinforcing in those ditches so they don't erode in the future.
And the leaves are terrible, obviously.
And plugging driveway culverts with leads. Yeah, I don't really see that would be anything changed dramatically by this project.
it's mostly the off-road drainage that, you know, the stormwater drainage.
Yeah, this project really doesn't affect Frank Long Road. It's Route 91. The main concern.
That one. So the most effective post would be down here.
Anything.
I don't know.
Okay, well, thank you. Welcome to stay. And yes, I'm wondering how we should proceed. Do we,
Sure. Well, it sounds to me like the applicant wants to meet with the neighbors, and we have certainly a list of people that have signed up to speak tonight. It's public information, and as they speak tonight, they can explain whether they want to meet with the developer or the applicant. Let's see how it goes, but at this point, it doesn't look like the applicant is asking for any action on the part of the board. The next step would be to set a date for a public hearing on this, but I don't think we're at that position right now without really understanding whether the mitigation that's being proposed in terms of both screening and in terms of drainage would be satisfactory to those who are here to speak tonight. So I think right now, I think we can move on to the next item and see what happens later during the public comment period.
and if you did not get a copy of this, we'll post it on the town's website so that it's available for the public to look at. And if you got any questions, because believe me, I did when I first was looking at this, feel free to reach out to us and we'll either try to answer them or we'll send you to John or whoever we need to answer the questions. Okay, you ready to move on? So, finally catching up. Yes, so,
So we've everyone has a copy of this. And had a chance to read the statements for the month. Yeah, it's actually. That's pretty much it. Let's say at this point, the new accounting program has been
can I
fully.
interrupt you for just a second? If you hit that stop share, then I think that it comes back to us. I think.
That's
Oh, there, back up here. Yeah, thanks. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No problem. So at this point, the new accounting program has been fully implemented. There are some things that we still need to clean up, but it's up and running and so far so good. There is one budget modification I have in your packets there. $3,887 from the contingent line to unallocated insurance line to account for an increase in insurance renewal cost
the renewal came back higher than what was budgeted for. So that should cover the overage there, so that.
I'll make the motion to approve the budget transfer as presented.
I'll second it.
Bill seconds it. Just so you know, the reason why the insurance went up, it was mostly cyber insurance related because insurance companies are getting really difficult. Asking for a lot, and giving us very little. As well as we have some brand spanking new highway equipment that is a lot more valuable than what it replaced. So therefore, the insurance is. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carried.
Continues to earn a pretty substantial amount of interest each month. Its balances with NICLAS, pulled in $7,239 last month. We just moved some extra funds into the account this past month, so it should be a higher number come next month.
How much was it in interest?
In interest, NICLAS was $7,239.
Wow, we used to get pennies.
Yeah, the rates are probably higher. That should be a pretty high amount for.
Yeah. Oh, great.
And lastly, the town still has $683,000 of ARPA money that's unexpended. I think $20,000 is now committed to the highway garage roof project. So 663 is still left to be spent.
And we need, now that your crazy busy season is over, for you and Bill and I and a couple other people to sit down and we've had some conversations with people in the community about ways to use those funds. And so we really need to sit down and hammer out like a plan for that money that would benefit everyone.
I'll make a motion to approve the monthly statement for April of the supervisor.
Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Do I sign this? I never have. So what then? This is all, and this is a new format.
Those new funds.
Okay. Yeah. And Nikki, you have one, right?
Yeah.
So I will sign the one you have. Now. The
I
bank,
should say too, if the board likes to see any other type of report, I can generate anything. So
This is perfect.
Is that good?
This is
Yeah.
really.
easy to read. Now the bank reconciliations for this, the general fund supervisors. For February, March, and April, it's all been submitted this month. To catch us up. We're trying to put up with software. And Nikki, do you have those? I don't know where they went, but we lost time on them.
They went that way.
I know.
Yes, I have that.
Okay, so, I think we need to entertain a motion to approve those.
Make a motion to take statements reconciliation
For what, all those,
for all months.
okay, so for March.
February, March, and April.
I have a second.
I'll second it.
And seconds, any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Has everybody had a chance to look at the town clerk and tax collector reconciliations for April?
I'll make a motion to accept the bank reconciliation for April for the town clerk and ex collector.
I'll second it. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carried. Nikki?
Yeah, if the board had a chance to review my draft, I'm looking for acceptance of the April 20th meeting minutes.
I'll take a motion to accept the April 20th minutes.
What second? Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye, opposed, motion carried.
And if the board has had a chance to review and sign the vouchers, I'm looking for a payment of bills, motion for payment of bills.
I'll make a motion to accept the vouchers to be paid.
I'll second it.
I'm sorry to be a stickler, but I have one thing that came up while I was looking at the bills, but,
Okay.
the workers' comp
Yes.
We pay on a quarterly schedule. So, we're paying, and we, because of the license software stuff, we've been a little bit behind on that. So we have one of them for, the one you gave us is for, was the one that was overdue for March. But there's also one due June first.
Together.
That's what, well, so June first is gonna come before the next board meeting. So I was thinking if we could just adjust that
Okay.
voucher to add
Yep.
June's, then we would be current and we're not gonna be behind.
Okay.
Would the board be okay with that?
We
did
took
that.
it,
We
we
already
took
did
care of that.
You already did that?
Yeah.
Worried about the heavy equipment. Okay. Good. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. That's too good. Okay. PR, that's a competitive vote.
Looking for board approval to replace Dodge 3500 with 2024 Chevy 3500 HD LWD four-wheel drive under state contract PC 69234 for a price of $1,900. It'll still take 4 or 5 months to get.
I'm just being this again, stickler.
That's fine.
We know for certain that this is state contract. This is
Yep,
current. Okay,
yes,
just doing my due diligence to ask.
absolutely.
So, does anybody want to make a motion?
Is this replacing another vehicle?
Yes.
Is there a trade-in or we sell the other vehicle or we're just,
Here, why happened the other one?
what happens to the other vehicle?
The other one met an early demise.
That's all right. Okay. All right, I make a motion to approve it. Of the release of the 2024.
Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we all saw
All
that.
right.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
The only other thing I have is the Earth Day 2023 roundup. I got some numbers. We did 2 trips of scrap that went to Metallico for a total of 6,340 pounds. Which we got a check for $537.78.
What it used to be, is
Nope,
it?
not at all. 1 trip of batteries went to Metallico for a total of 1,097 pounds. We got a $64.94.
Covering that shredder.
That's
That shredding company.
covered in fuel. Tires, we had a total of 762 tires turned in from the town. 6 trips to Okra, thank God they don't charge us anything for that, so that's good. And it does clean up the town, so it's kind of a nice thing. And then new this year was the electronic recycling, thanks to Teresa. She set up some Sun King, who didn't charge us anything. So we loaded 12 pallets. Which, no, we loaded 19. We had 12. We needed more, with a total of 9,176 pounds electronics. And that was a little drive-through. I don't know if anybody come up here, but you drove right through the shop and we unloaded and just kept everybody moving. It went well. So that worked out real well. We hope to do that again next year.
That was good.
Yeah.
That was really good. And
Yeah.
I could not believe how many
I know.
people came with electronics. It, no place that
No place to
is
get rid of
so
it. It was
easy.
kinda nice.
It was so easy and the fact that we took in that many tires. Get them out of people's yards
Yep.
and farms and whatever. So,
Other than that, we're still sweeping. We're a little behind because of the 2 rainstorms we've had. So if you haven't been on your street yet, we'll get there eventually. And obviously doing ditching and stuff. So gearing up for some oil and stone.
how many loads today did you bring in of stone?
Oh, for quite a few.
Every time you got there.
It wakes you right up, doesn't it?
There's a lot of stone out there.
Oh, yeah, a lot more to go. Yeah.
I have a little question about the truck thing, because of that it was demised, now does insurance help cover any of that?
Yes, we, yep,
$49,000
Yeah, all right, that's what I figured. It was.
absolutely.
and change. I don't know exactly, but that was about it. Everyone has the codes officer report, and for the month of April, business is picking up because we had 14 permits compared to, I think, 5 last month. issued 9 certificates of completion or occupancy and did 2 stop work orders. So just for everyone's information. And John, I put you on the agenda for the MS4 report.
So it's that time of year again when the town is required to report to DEC on how well you have made efforts to prevent stormwater pollution from all the activities that occur in the town. So we have to do an annual report. As a municipality that has to do this, there's 6 things that you're obligated to do. Starting with number 1, you need to educate the public about stormwater. To accomplish this objective, you have contracted with Central New York Regional Planning to do this on behalf of all of the program of education. That's in the report on the number of people that they reached and through their education program. The second obligation is to engage the local public in stormwater pollution prevention. And what BR was just talking about with your Earth Day cleanup, that's a great example of how you engage your constituents with removing pollution preventing elements from the landscape and from the town. You also publish this report and it's available on the website. That's an obligation. You also have this information available for everyone to review. That's the second one. The third obligation is that all of the stormwater outfalls that leave the town have to be inspected every year to make sure they're not discharging pollution. To that end, the Soil Conservation District inspects all 14 outfalls here in the town. They inspect them every year. They have reported that they did inspect them and there is no evidence of any illicit discharges from those.
I'd like to add to that real quick. We're actually doing that once a year. During the summer after a rain event, we try to make sure that all the outlets are,
Inspect the outlets again.
and we're documented it every time you saw.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just an addition, that's all.
The fourth and fifth ones are any major construction projects or any projects that are of a certain magnitude have to prepare stormwater pollution prevention plans and they need to be reviewed by me on your behalf. There weren't any last year. If we report again next year, this project goes forward, this will be obviously a slip that will be reviewed and but we didn't have any last year. There were no major projects in the town last year. And then finally, the last measure is the municipal facilities, primarily the highway garage, and the municipal operations that are conducted by the highway department. So to that end, we're reporting that last year BR swept about 60 miles of road, cleaned 53 catch basins, and inspected and maintained all 6 of the stormwater management practices that are in the developments around the area for stormwater mitigation, much like what's being proposed here on the solar farm. There are 6 other facilities throughout the town that do the same thing. So those were all inspected. This year, we worked with BR to create a more formal kind of inspection maintenance record keeping that's now in our report to show that, you know, every year BR and his crew will inspect each of those and note whatever maintenance is being performed. We also did a kind of a quick assessment of the facilities here, and in general, BR runs a pretty tight ship. There's one objective that's still out there to do, which is to install an oil water separator from the discharge before it goes into the stream, and that's on the process of getting funded. And hopefully next year we can report that it's been done. So that's the report for this year. And I guess I would ask the board to pass a resolution authorizing me to sign the report so it can be submitted to DEC.
Make a motion that we authorize him to sign this.
I'll second it.
I have to sign it, right? There's a
Sign
question
it.
there.
Yes.
Is there any discussion from the board? Did you talk to them about that?
I did.
Okay.
Sorry. I'll fix it.
Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Nikki, we'll get that to Veronica to get on the website and I think there's a separate.
I need
tab
to
on it.
fix something.
I always keep a copy in the town clerk's office too.
Okay.
Do you have one?
No,
Okay.
I mean, I have last.
And I'll get you new copy.
okay.
Very much. Been busy for us this month. I play. Tim.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, you asked me to review the paperwork that was submitted by the Pumpy Hill Cemetery Association. Determine whether or not it would be a proper association or a proper corporation to actually to provide money for a software program. I have been given the documents that that Elena had talked about at the last meeting. They're from 1866. And that's when this corporation was apparently formed. And I have talked to some people at the Department of State Cemetery Division. And I'm trying to get in touch with the attorney to make sure that, because this doesn't show up in any database of the Department of State, either in the corporate records or in their cemetery records, because it's so old. It looks like it was properly filed with the county clerk's office, as opposed to today, if you were going to form a corporation, you would do it with the Secretary of State. But based on the information I have, I am satisfied that this is a corporation formed or an association that is contemplated under the statute. So I would like to talk to the attorney from the Department of State, and I haven't yet, but if you wanted to move forward with anything, we can always make it subject to legal confirmation.
Well, the only reason it would, I mean, I would think that we would want that because this involves a purchase and you can't make the purchase until if there's some doubt or question or something comes up that would change your,
Yes, and then if there's no rush on this, then I would wait.
well, where's Lainey? There she is. Lainey, is there a rush on this? Because
I have some answers.
Okay.
So because the
could you
cemetery,
just for the record, tell us everybody who you are.
hi, I'm Lainey Richnon, and I'm the president of the Pompey Hill Cemetery Board. Okay, so because the cemetery had not been upkept, we can all see the leaves and stuff where it hasn't been upkept clearly. But what also hasn't been kept up is a lot of the paperwork. So myself and Kristen above it, we meet every week and do 3 to 4 hours worth of paperwork just to get the cemetery back up to where it's supposed to be with paperwork, because with the federal government, with the state government, with all of that paperwork has lapsed. So because it has been lapsed for so many years, we're having to redo it all. We've talked to the Division of Cemeteries. I think I talk to them weekly. They understand, they're giving us leeway to get this all processed. It is all being processed at this time. So that's what's happening with the paperwork trail. So it's on it's in process.
So based on that, I would suggest we wait to hear from the Department of State, and I wait to hear from the Department of State, just so that they can say, yes, paperwork has been satisfactorily submitted, and we deem this as a not-for-profit corporation, and which would then qualify to get money from the town through the statute that we mentioned at the last meeting.
Which is a whole thing because the state and federal government moved all the cemeteries from a 501c3 to a 501c13. The paperwork wasn't properly filed. It's filed now. Then we have to separate out the 501c3 paperwork. So that takes.
You're learning a lot, aren't you?
I have learned so much. I have learned so much. I have spent more time with the IRS and the Department of State and everyone who has a boring job in the entire world. And I'm right there with them now.
So I'll put this back on for next month.
Okay,
Okay, and hopefully we can move forward at that point.
all right. Any other questions on it?
Anybody got a? Well, Lady Street.
I'd like to say we had 2 cleanup days. We had, you were there at the first one. We had the second one to finish up and we did. We had combined with the 2 days, probably around 60 to 65 volunteers to come out and clean up the cemetery and spend a lot of time. So that was awesome. It's great to see all the community involved.
Okay. So Tim, I asked you to talk about a moratorium. The term is being floated around with respect to solar. And I just want to educate us at the same time, the public, on what's a moratorium and how it works and when it's appropriate to be used.
I'd be happy to. So state law, or state case law, actually, there's no statute that talks about moratoriums. But case law does authorize towns to, because they are delegated the responsibility for zoning under state statute. They can put a pause on certain types of developments if they feel that those developments are coming in and they aren't equipped to handle it. But again, it's a pause and you would have to do it by local law, which would be subject to a public hearing. Solar issue here in the town of Pompey, frankly, in my view, does not meet the kind of hallmarks you would be looking for before you put in a moratorium. And what are those types of hallmarks that you're looking for? Well, first of all, the law itself. But many times we would put a moratorium in place if we didn't have a law that addressed an issue that's happening in the town. Or if the law was so old that it was outdated. Well, our solar law is about 3 years old. And it was a long process to develop that solar law. And it's been put in place and it addresses the issues that we're facing today when it comes to solar. So because the law is relatively new and it does contemplate all the applications that we have gotten, by the way, another hallmark of a moratorium would be you're getting an influx or you're inundated with applications for something. It's my recollection that we've had 2 applications for solar farms in the town of Pompey over the last 3 years. There are other towns, frankly, that I represent that have gotten significantly more applications for solar farms. One of them has put a moratorium in place, but they've gotten 4 solar farm applications in the last 3 months. So their law is not as new as the town of Pompey's law. So they want to take a pause to look at their law to see whether it's being covered. Another hallmark of a moratorium would be that you're in the process of putting in some type of comprehensive plan. That you want to wait before you approve applications for further development until that comprehensive plan has been completed. So that comprehensive plan would also take into account the development that is being applied for in the town. We are not in the process of a comprehensive plan in the town of Pompey right now. Then the fourth area, and I think it's most applicable to the town of Pompey because we do have a local law in place. It's a relatively new local law in place. And in fact, that local law has actually worked when it comes to solar farms and as it relates to at least one solar farm application that this town board considered for many, many months. and made a determination that it wasn't going to go forward with the overlay district. So the process in that case, as it relates to the town board's desire and concerns about that solar farm, actually prevented the solar farm from going forward. So I don't see any of the hallmarks that you would be looking for to implement a moratorium on solar farms in the town of Pownell. That's not to say that you couldn't do it, but it really doesn't meet the criteria which you would look for in determining whether a moratorium makes sense. If we were approving 4 or 5 solar farms in the course of a year, and they were being developed, and we weren't catching up on a lot of things that needed to be done in order to accommodate those, that would be one thing, but that is not what's happening in the town of Pownell, notwithstanding what we've been told. So that's kind of an overview of why you would do a moratorium. The moratorium process is simple. It's the same as you would with any local law. Moratoriums have generally been allowed for, hey, you usually start at 6 months and you extend, and the courts will let you extend them for maybe a year and a half, but a court will not allow you to indefinitely extend a moratorium, because then you are just halting the development. And it's no longer a pause, it is a it is a obstacle to the law that has already been put in place. So, and along with that moratorium, there should be a review of what's happening and what the problem is, and trying to address that problem, either through the comprehensive plan or reviewing the statute or the local law to try to address issues that have come up that have been a problem. Yes, Jason.
So if I understand it right, moratorium would only be to while you're working at changing the law, particularly not, you know, that would be if you want for the only real purpose for one is if you're gonna address the law and do some changes.
Yeah, if we recognize that something isn't working with the law and we're approving projects that are causing problems that weren't anticipated or had unintended consequences, then you could put a pause on it and say, hold it. We need to look at the law and determine whether or not we can change the law to address the problems that we didn't anticipate.
I mean, I know the only or the biggest reason for it coming up is the rumor pretty much permanent out there that the one that was voted down within 6 months is talking about coming back at the same site. That's what's bringing the issue up. So is that, you know, that's kind of, you know,
I haven't seen anything.
it hasn't officially hit here yet, but there's been meetings, public meetings talking about it. So that's what's bringing it around. So in that situation, I guess asking you as a lawyer wise, you know, because it definitely is possible for the same thing to come back. And that's seems to be working up some of the public about the fact that, you know, the neighbors think, okay, we this one got shot down, but 6 months later it'll be coming right back. So some of them
Don't forget what our overlay district is. Our overlay district is a zone change essentially. So it is a legislative act. Anybody can come to this town board anytime they want and say, I want you to change our town code. And that's what the overlay district is we're going to change our town zoning map to allow a certain use that isn't allowed today. So anybody can come and you can say no, and then anybody can come back. Just if I wanted to say to Senator Mannion, I want you to put in a bill, and he puts in the bill and it doesn't pass, and then it expires in 2 years, I can come back and say, do it again. And he can say no, he can say yes, because you have the discretion. You were elected to make decisions in terms of the legislative process in the town of Pownell. So there's nothing that would restrict somebody to come to you and say, can we have this? And you can certainly say, we'll consider it, we won't consider it, or let's not do something. That's in your discretion. So if Pivot came back with an application, you can say, what's changed? Is that the makeup of the board has changed a little bit. You know, maybe some components of their application might have changed. But if it hasn't changed, why would there be any change in the final decision? It's time consuming and it's expensive to come before a board to move a project forward if the results really is not going to be.
I was mostly doing that, so this- I know that was in the public. I wanted you to put that out there.
Yeah, I would just add that despite the information session that Pivot held back in. Yeah, there's been no application to the town.
Does anybody have any questions about moratoriums and?
Thank you.
No,
That's
thank
great.
you. That was good. I was taking notes like I was in class. Yes. Quizzed on it.
I think that's all for me tonight.
Okay. So, on to the supervisor's report. The registration for the swim program did open on May 1st. The last time I talked to the Tully Parks and Rec people, there had been 72 non-Tully residents. I mean, non-Tully registrations, excuse me. But that wasn't meaning they were all Pompey people. So there's still, and I would just encourage anybody who's interested in the program to register. I'm still holding out hope for a return to Cass College. But it'll depend on if anybody steps up and chooses to buy it. And then depending on who buys it, whether or not they will make it available to us like we had in the past. So this is a year of transition and we have no choice, but there is room still available, as I understand it. And if there needs to be levels added, because there's a demand for a certain level of swim lessons, they are going to add more sessions. So I forgot about this. Oh, shoot. Okay. So the next thing, we have had a vacancy on our zoning board of appeals for probably 4 months now, 5 months. And I'd like to make a motion to nominate an individual. Her name is Sierra Haynes. She lives in Delphi Falls. She graduated from SUNY Oswego and is now, this is what I forgot to bring with me, because I'm not going to get it right. She's now the director of the county's farm services agency. I'm not going to get it right, so I apologize. I apologize to Sierra. So I approached her about, she graduated from Fabius Pompey in 2006. So she's the youngest board member. She would be the youngest board member by a significant amount of ages. She's very interested. She came last night to the zoning board meeting and sat through an interesting agenda item that's coming back next month. I don't know if anybody else knows Sierra.
I know.
Okay, oh, good. So I wasn't sure, but I would make a motion to nominate her to fill the remaining term on the zoning board of appeals to replace the member that resigned in December.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Great.
This one's are Sierra. right?
Sierra, it's SEARA. And it's HAINES. And she's a mom with two little babies. So the zoning board doesn't meet that often, so hopefully it's a good fit for her. We got her feet wet and in our world, and it's a good replacement for someone who's a farmer with someone who's engaged in.
Okay, Sierra, right?
Yes. So the only other thing, and there's no need, we don't need to get into much of a discussion about it tonight, but I did have time. To draft a credit card policy for the town, because we cannot have a credit card for the town without a policy in place. As to how it would be used, who would be authorized to use it, if we want to set limits on the amount of that can be used for, things like that. This is a draft because there's parts of it. And I'm sorry, it should have been, I should have copied it in color. To do color, because it's highlighted where the parts are. But I can send it to you in email so you can look at it. But I'd be interested in your comments on, especially the section on card usage. There's quite a few items I don't even have a provision for. Most of it, I went through the New York State State Comptroller's Office. They had information there, suggestions on advice on how to set up a policy and responsibly use a credit card. When I worked for Madison County, we all had them. And it was not. It was easy to track as long as you had billing that allowed you to identify who was using the card. So, and the only way you do that is you just issue a card that has somebody's name on it. So, but I do think, especially for Nikki and BR, who do a lot of purchases, that it would, and for trainings to register people and things like that, it just makes it a lot simpler if we have a credit card. So Jim, I put the policy in your folder as well, because I would like feedback on it from everybody. And it's a working document. We can play with it and come up with the, the provisions that work for the town, but this way we can get a credit card.
We did the same thing for the fire department, because more and more things you need to either buy something online or all of our training books are now, on Amazon, stuff like that. It's just easier.
Yeah. And we just got to make sure that we don't get charged sales tax, and I not comfortable trying to, if we even needed to, come up with provisions that relate to internet purchases. I don't know if there needs to be any language to that effect, but I put that in as one of the card usage categories that I didn't really have an answer for. But
This can be set up, can it, not the allow sales tax? I think the card can be set up.
I didn't know that. Usually we have to show some, if it, it's only New York State, but you have to show something that shows that you're exempt. Yeah.
Then I have to go to the
Yeah.
card.
So, anyway, look at it, see what you think. I'm not married to it, so if it needs to be changed, or if you want to tweak it. And just so everybody remembers, I am not here next month. I'm going to be out of state, so I won't be here for the June town board meeting. So Deputy Supervisor Salo will run the meeting. So I won't be here to discuss this, but feel free, to work on it. I can put it, I'll make the agenda, but I'm going to be traveling with my sons, so gonna miss that opportunity. So anyway, I think that's all I have. And we're now to public comment. So did you grab the sheet?
First person on the list is Linda Wellner, 6955 Frank Long Road.
Hey, Linda.
So where would you like me to sit? I mean, stand over here, as long as they can see up there.
Right there is good.
Okay, I'll try to speak as loud as I can.
Speak to us.
Yes, and I need to speak to you. Limits the amount that I'll project into the room.
I know.
It's important to remember that not all green projects are sustainable or environmentally responsible. Installing a solar power plant on a steep slope can contribute to flooding and erosion, and in this case, it's already a known problem. Destroying the largest stand of trees in town in order to install 30 acres of solar power panels against the recommendation of the DEC is not responsible handling of natural resources and is detrimental to natural habitat. And destroying beautiful views of rolling hills, forest and farmland in order to install a solar or wind power plant compromises property values and town prosperity. Not to mention, views that will be gone forever. It's not responsible to change zoning for the financial benefit of one neighbor when to do so hurts everyone else. When people buy property in a town, they enter into a partnership with the government, local government. No one pays citizen taxes to town government and improves their property with the expectation that the government will not do anything that will result in a decrease in their property value and the desirability of the neighborhood. I believe we should create a moratorium on industrial solar power plants long enough for us to make sure our master plan addresses the future onslaught, because there will be. I receive invitations from solar power plant developers who want to develop my property. And they offer monetary incentives that are hard for people to ignore if they're financially strapped. So going forward, I actually think we're going to have to shore ourselves up to protect the beauty of our town. That's really, I believe these industrial ventures have no business coming to residential neighborhoods or agricultural areas. Our state guidebook actually recommends against installing on steep slopes. They prohibit and actually will fine local towns for developing on agricultural land. And I just believe that we need to protect ourselves going forward if we want Pompey to stay looking the way I think our 2013 master plan describes and protect the resources we still have. And although it's mentioned this is a 25-year-long project, changing a zoning overlay is forever. And lawyers will argue in court that there's a pre-existing a precedent for such changes. And who knows how many other people will join the ranks of these people who want to sell to Seaboard Solar. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
No, we cannot. Because we don't know what. Are you gonna boo if somebody comes up and says something you don't like? Please. Yeah. We won't believe.
Kathy Garofalo.
My name is Kathy Abrasco, Brockwell, 7160 Frank Long Road. I want to also thank you for the town of Pompey on that rainy week. I had a nice conversation with some of the guys that were working in the ditch from my brother's house. So I also appear to say that I'm also requesting a moratorium against our master plan to review. I've also been receiving letters to put solar on my land also. So, and they want to give me this money to hold on to the land so they can get it. And the letters even state that they're sending it to other people on the road. I'm not sure who else, but I know other people around the area are, so I think we need to protect the town of Pompey for what we really want it to be and not be a commercial, industrial solar in our town, or have a place somewhere else, or have a moratorium, when you overlay. I'm not quite sure of the overlay, but find an area that we think would be suitable. And if the solar company comes in, say, we have this spot designated or this spot designated, and that's it. Otherwise, I think we just need to protect our town. One of the things I hadn't said before when I was up here is the road on the trucks, because the area that I'm on is the straightaway, the speedway. We have chickens, we have cows, not cows, we have chickens, we have dogs and cats. And every time a home is built or a pool is built up at Whitney Estates, I know when there's a new house because I see the truck with cement blocks or the construction, and then the trucks, and then all the workers come in their pickup trucks and they come zoom down, and then at 5 o'clock they zoom back. I don't think they're gonna go up the hill. And so I'm kind of concerned about our roads. At least it's paved, but I'm just concerned about our road. I'm concerned about speeding trucks and all this construction, which is gonna add to it. And also, when they were talking, a few minutes ago, they talked about the retaining ponds. We talked about that before when they wanted to put the housing development in. Those ponds can overflow. Who's gonna be maintaining them? Who's gonna be watching them? And what happens when there is an overflow? We had that same discussion before. I'm not sure. The other thing is about the conservation and leaving the land afterward. In conservation. One side of my property was supposed to be forever wild. And I don't, it's for forever wild for conservation. And now there's a house next door. So it means nothing when they say that. So anyways, I just want to thank you for listening to us.
Thank you.
Next is Gus Cosmos, and this is the person that you wanted me to.
Yeah,
He's at 7300 Gates Road.
Mr. Cosmos couldn't stay, and board members, his
Renee, he asked me to speak for him. I don't know. I know you spoke to him. You want to handle it, or I can speak to it because I've called about the same issue.
Yeah, he's just concerned about the Gates Road, Sweet Road intersections. The accidents that occur there, and hoping that we can take some action to better control the traffic there. And the problem I mentioned to him that we have with that is that it's Sweet Road is not our road, and we've tried numerous times to get the speed reduced there, and it hasn't been successful at state DOT, but I told him I would look into it. Did he say anything else to you other than what I just summarized?
Just from living there, and I know a lot of people right here live there, there's been so many accidents over the years. I've spoken to Tom about it before. BR, I don't know if you've heard of any over there, but the near misses also with all of our kids, it's mostly people crossing that road. People coming down Sweet Road hit 70, 75 miles an hour, and those cars are on you so fast. It's really scary.
Cars coming from the south, you mean?
Yeah, from the south coming downhill.
And
And
it's hard to slow down in the bad weather.
yeah, right. And when we've had the accidents, they've been really bad. Like the cars are just demolished. So yeah, it's something I've called about in years past. It was to be looked into. Why won't they do it? I mean, if you guys have called or checked into it, and I know it's not your road, why wouldn't they?
You can
put it
make a
there?
request. The process is the town can request a speed reduction. It goes to the county for the county's input. The county can join on or not because it's their road. And then, but it's the state DOT that determines speed on every road. Doesn't matter whether it's county road, town road, or whatever, but so it's the state. You send it to the state DOT, they plug it into their variables and they spit out an answer. And if they spit out, and it has to do with the kind of road it is, how wide it is, how dense the area is, all lot of factors. And they keep coming back and saying there's no reason to reduce the speed on Sweet Road.
Really? They obviously don't live there. There's
Yeah.
a major need for that.
I mean, we can try again.
Would you please, that would
Yes, and
appreciate it. Our kids, you know, new younger drivers especially, it's you have to turn your head back and forth real fast and then hit it to get through that.
okay.
Okay. Next on the list is J.R. Anthus. Over the farm lane. Seeing it?
Yes.
First, we all want to thank all of you guys. You've all met with us repeatedly. Some of you taken the time. We've all put a lot of time and effort into this thing, more than any of us really wanted to, and learned way more about solar than we ever thought we would. One of the common themes here is that really no one wants this. No one in the town, in the area we've talked to, you know, endless amounts of people. We have petitions from between Sweet Road and Frank Long Road, whether they were write-in or online petitions, 600 to 700 people. And we don't hear anyone that's for this. You mentioned that respectfully, that it was benign to have it in this area. We don't see it as benign at all. I don't know. I shouldn't probably ask you the question, but we don't know anyone who would want it in the backyard. I don't think you would want it in your backyard either. I think it's just horrible to even consider putting that on someone to own a property. They're probably their biggest investment of their life. And say their home's worth 300,000, it goes down to 200,000. They could be in a real jam. And I just can't see anybody not being bothered by solar in their backyard. We have a pretty, stressed and angry town. The longer this thing goes on, it just seems like people are just getting hotter and hotter over it. And I think we need to put a stop to it. Most recently, the last month or so, I've for work had meetings in a lot of different towns. I've driven Route 11 up to Ogdensburg, Potsdam, Route 20, Morrisville, Cooperstown, Route 29 this past weekend up to Saratoga. There's solar parks going up everywhere. They're everywhere, and it's going to keep coming. And as mentioned, people are getting letters in the mail left and right, and we have to slow this thing down, pump the brakes. There's, I think, 4 or 5 going in Manlius. I mean, how many do we really need? This isn't even a fit for our town. If you look at all the master plan, the information and how many times they refer to view shed. We don't have a lot out here. We moved out here for the view, for the privacy. And unfortunately, we're the hills south of Syracuse where the weather people always mention you'll get more snow. That's all that's out here, you know, so it's not a fit in industrial park in our backyards. My heart breaks for the people that it would be right behind their homes or surrounding their homes. I think it's disgusting. When I drove these roads, I looked, I pulled over, I checked them out. There wasn't one of many of these solar farms where there was a house even close to it. Not one. There was one that had a school that was on the property of the school. That wouldn't bother me if the school had enough space, but not one. And you can drive out there and see for yourself. I think it's terrible. When you search the internet and you look at these other towns, and I've talked to some of the counselors from Hastings, Palermo, and others, there's another common thread here. It's lawsuits and moratoriums. Lawsuits and moratoriums. That's what they're doing. They're pumping the brakes. So you said there's laws, but there's also can be other reasons why. I think this situation might be one of those other reasons why. With the Article 78, you know, I think if one ends up anywhere, they're going to sue wherever they go. The only time I think one should be approved is if someone's not suing, if it doesn't offend someone, change their life, change their value of their home. We talked in the past, I want to state it again, the ROI to our town, the return on investment is nil. It's 15,000 per 500 megawatt. I believe that's true for our town also, right? That seems to be the standard. Is it that same number? I'm not positive. That's the number it's posted everywhere. So, but it boils down to the amount of money that the school would get. We were referring to it as they would get this chunk, that chunk. It's crumbs. It's less than what my one house pays in school taxes, what the school will get. The town will get $2,000. It's nothing for as frustrated and angry as everyone here is about what it could be if it were to go in. So I don't want to see the town. I was talking to BR, you know, when he runs out of money or runs out of diesel, they're done working on the roads. I don't want to see the town money tied up in lawsuits. Right.
I was gonna say, but I'm trying to be. Said you,
Do I have to stop or can I continue?
how much more do you have?
I
You
can
summarize?
I'll summarize what's left. One of the points, it's just an example that people love. This money should go to Arizona. They get 5 times the power out there or use 1/5 of the panels, and then they can put them in the dump out there. I'd like to know, are these guys taking these solar panels after 20 years back to Connecticut? They got to go somewhere. It's my understanding they can't even go into dumps. They're toxic waste. Where are they going? Where are we putting these things? That's enough. That's okay.
I
All
just
right.
wanted.
I'm sure we'll have more meetings. I'll hit you on the next.
Next is Ivan Fuller, 3915 Route 91.
My name's Ivan Fuller, 3915 Route 91. As I said before, people talk about a 200-year flood. We've been flooded 2014, 2016, 18, 20, 21, twice so far this year. The last time they dumped about 5 tons of running crush in my lower driveway, and we got flooded on both sides of the house, not just from the creek, but also came down 91 from Coleman Hill. This is not just a creek problem. I also noticed that looking at this map, all of these retaining ponds, they all have a flow back to this little gray line that runs underneath here. I don't know if everybody's got a map, you can see that. This runs right out to Frank Long Road. Well, as you drive down Frank Long Road, if you look real close on the left-hand side coming down the hill, the town of Pompey has runoffs that go actually right back in towards the creek. One of them, well, this is one of my neighbor's houses, but there's 3 of them that take the water from the left side of the road and run it right back in towards the creek. So if there is an overflow, it hits this pipe and it goes right down the road and it comes right back into the creek. The other thing the map isn't showing us is the solar panels. So if this is going to divert the water, you know, from the land, and it's going to help that out, but it's not showing us the runoff from all the solar panels. 30 acres of land, 24 hours, 2 inches of rain, 1,930 gallons, 930,000 gallons of water. How big are these retaining ponds? Are they big enough to hold that much water? And if the ground's already wet? Another thing the map doesn't show us is the swamp. It's directly below this. This ground is already saturated on top of the artesian well, which is overflowing all the time anyways, which is at the head of this creek. This is why we need to go up. You need to go to Ronnie's property and see this land. I don't know how many times I gotta get flooded out. This is a shotgun pointed at my house. I'm very, very concerned about this. These people, Seaboard, I have no problem with them. Somehow they come to my house, they tried to convince me, but they want to guarantee me. How can I take a guarantee? Once this is in and it's all set and they go back to Connecticut and I get flooded out 2 years later, then what? Nobody cares, right? My house is gone and what? I'm left holding the bag and they're just gone with the money. So, I mean, I guess that's all I have to say. I'm just a little bit upset tonight, so.
Okay.
Tom Burns, 7099 Frank Long Road.
Hello. Yeah, I live just over the hill, my wife and I, just over the hill from the proposed industrial project. I'm the whitewater kayaker guy that a couple meetings ago was saying, I don't even need to look at the gauges sometimes. Driving to work, these full on water just blasting down the road. Decided to go hit the big stuff, but anyway, Good afternoon. Regarding moratoriums on industrial sized solar projects. I've been trying to find comprehensive list of towns in central New York that have them. The information is widely scattered, but lots of nearby communities have had or currently have moratoriums in place. This gives the boards time to properly assess how to handle all the applications from out-of-state companies wanting to build these highly profitable installations. Senate, Auburn, Skinny Atlas, Clay, Dryden, Rome. And Seaboard Solar, I guess you're involved with Rome. There's been some legal action there on that one. Root, Canajoharie, Clifton Park, Rotterdam, and Duanesburg are just a few examples. Our next door neighbor, Manlius, had a moratorium resolution proposed that was shot down by the board with a contentious vote of 4-3 on August 11, 2021, which allowed 5 projects to proceed. Clay regretted not having a moratorium in place after approving 2 5-megawatt farms in 2019 and 2020 without demanding good pilot payments. Supervisor Damian Ulatowski said town leaders at the time were overwhelmed by an onslaught of proposed solar farms. Then Dryden got tangled up in a 3-year court battle on collecting taxes from a solar farm after missing a legal technicality and lost the case. I guess they forgot to notify NYSERDA, they had to opt out, and that was one of the things they missed. Then they had to return $51,000 a year in property tax they had collected since 2017 from Laerte Solar Farm in the town of Hartford. A different article describes how solar companies are offering landowners between $1,000 to $3,000 per acre annually to lease their land. That sentence really stuck out to me. That's a huge carrot that any farmer is going to be tempted to grab onto. Unfortunately, in many cases, this situation pits neighbor against neighbor. If built in the wrong location, as nearby residents are directly impacted by the installation without any financial benefit. This whole solar push is into generally cloudy upstate New York. Reminds me of the great gold rush of 1848. But instead of gold, they're looking for the green pastures and green cash of rural farmlands incentivized heavily by state and federal programs. The best article I could find that matches up with the challenge the town of Pompey faces was from the Daily Gazette, writing about Duanesburg and Rotterdam located near Schenectady. Neighbors opposed realize these projects will disrupt the area's ecosystem, diminish property values, and goes against the new comprehensive plan they had to come up with that calls for preserving the town's rural features. Of particular interest is Rotterdam appointed a new energy advisory committee in conjunction with a 12-month moratorium, and Duanesburg crafted a new local law mandating that solar companies also enter into a community host agreement or public benefit fee that would be determined by the town board. The law also requires operators to adhere to strict decommissioning plans and obtain a security that covers 125% of the cost of removing the array at the time of approval and include a 2% escalator each year to account for inflation, which I don't think I don't see that in any of the documents. In summary, I would like to propose 2 items for the town board to consider. Draft a resolution to implement a moratorium for 12 months to analyze this complex issue and decide what is best for the town, residents as a whole, and to protect the town from a legal standpoint. Then the second one, I'm not sure if this is needed or not, appoint a new solar energy advisory committee to help the board make vital decisions. It sounds like this task already falls under the current Environmental Conservation Commission we already have. I'm not sure about that, but we're all on the town website. The commission cannot recommend an installation on Frank Long Road for numerous reasons, I imagine. Just one more thing, it just seems like the whole cart's going before the horse on this thing. For the amount of money out there, the state and federal's pushing into this thing. Why couldn't we focus on expanding the 3-phase power lines to find a more suitable area? A lot of people are all for solar, but couldn't we find a community project where everyone's going to benefit? to get some money, upgrade these three-phase power lines to expand the options instead of picking on these residential areas and firing up the entire town and pay a lot of money in taxes. Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Nate Hodgman, Kaminer. Three nine six.
We're gonna put a moratorium on how many times you guys get to come here and speak.
I'm Nate Cameron. Got that right. I live at 3966 Kinder Lane. And I've been there for 42 years now. I thought the longest of some people around there live in their house. Probably longer than that, but 42 years, a long time for us. And first I want to just thank you for allowing us to stand here and speak. You know, it's a privilege that we have in this country. And there's a lot of places that don't have that privilege. And we shouldn't take that privilege for granted. So, and I'm glad to do it. And the same thing with the people here from Seaborn, you know, and we do it in a civilized manner and express ourselves. It is a real privilege. I'm here to talk only, hope so, about the decommissioning bond. A little snippet in the middle of this. And I have a little letter, a bunch of letters. I just want to hand these out, just so you can have them. I think there's one for everybody here. I'm going to talk about it and summarize those, if you would please. And what I'm talking that direction. What I've done is I've talked to some people at Brown & Brown Insurance and Bonding company here in Syracuse. They're also in Buffalo and Rochester and Albany and other places. I've had experience with them from my past life. Construction company when we needed bonds for construction projects and things like that. So I went there and talked to Troy Moore, Senior Vice President, and also to Rick Lyons, Vice President, and the team leader in the bonding group. And both times trying to gain information on the decommissioning bond, which I've been told in the documents here, we're trying to bond that the decommissioning of the project, the end of its life in 25 years. 25 years, as we know, is a long time. I spoke about that the last time I stood here, and it's hard to comprehend something 25 years in the future. But the comments from and I'm not the expert on the bonding, and I'm not the expert on decommissioning, and I don't even want to talk about the cost of the decommissioning at the moment. I just want to talk about, and the questions I was asking were relative to obtaining these bonds. And I was clearly told that you cannot get a bond that's going to be out there for 25 years to cover the decommission of this project. Now, I'm not arguing that one, but I was told very clearly, you cannot get that. And the other thing is that there's a list of, and it's on some government, something.gov, government, whatever, where it lists the surety companies that are the A's and A+ and A++ that could be candidates for these kinds of bonds. And that's listed in the in the pages there. You can look at those bonds. But to get a bond, what I've been told is you can get a 1-year bond, renewable every year. And that would be based on this financial strength of the developer or contractor or whomever is requesting that bond. That group would have to go through an audit, a detailed financial audit to know that they have the wherewithal even to get the bond. And it would only be for 1 year time. And the fees for the bond are, they say, about $25 per 1,000. And this bond might be 300,000 and it might be $1 million. I don't know what the number is. We're not going to talk about that. But it's a large amount, but the fees don't cover the bond. I've been told that they'd also have to have an indemnification of the town and other players provided in the documents, and they'd also have to put up securities that could be cash, could be legitimate treasury bonds or something like that. So they have to have the financial wherewithal just to back this bond, because the bonding companies, they don't want to rescue this and have to spend the money in 1 year or 25 years to repair. So they want to know that the company has skin in the game and they're prepared to last the duration. And another thing that they were indicated, they probably that their collateral will probably be an irrevocable letter of credit. These are the kinds of things that the definite necessities, and show that bond, and let's say after a year or two, they renewed it every year for 2 or 3 years and everything's going nicely, then for some reason that the company who purchased the bond didn't have the financial credibility to receive that bond, then all of a sudden, now what? There's nobody to renew that again. And is it 5 minutes? I'm sorry, I have to stop. I will stop. I say originally spoke of benefit versus risk to the town. And I have felt completely all the way through that there's no benefit to this project to the town. And here is just another risk in getting the bond. I'm opposed to the project, if you couldn't tell. And my request to the board is that you deny the overlay process. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here.
Thank you. Jane Kemener.
Jane Cameron. I also live at 3966 Kinder Lane. I wanted to say, I won't say that M word, but 2 solar projects and a third coming up, in my mind, is a lot for the town to deal with. You know, it's a small town, it's a lot to deal with. The master plan itself was dated 2013. It doesn't address what's currently happening in the town. I believe it needs to be updated. And I believe taking time off to take a deep dive into this would benefit the town. I take exemption to the word temporary that was used by Seaboard. 25 years is not temporary by any stretch of the imagination. It's a lifetime for some people, but 25 years is long. I hope to be here in 25 years. I wanted to focus a bit on the decommissioning, and I you know, probably more of a detailed person than some people, but I took a deep dive into the application and I read through it. I read through a lot of it. I know there's 12,480 panels. What do we do with those? Where do they go? What's going to happen in 25 years? What's it going to cost to dispose of those into a toxic landfill or even a non-toxic landfill? You add that on top of all the solar projects going on throughout the county. Where are they going to go? What's going to happen to them? You talk about, I don't want to get into details, but yet you talk about visibility of this project. You're going to put 7-foot trees in front of an 8-foot fence in front of panels that are 15 foot high and tell me I can't see them. Mm-hmm. How is that possible? Okay, maybe in 20 years, they showed great pictures of trees in 20 years. I actually went and looked at the drawings, took some dimensions, counted the trees they were planting. They're planting these trees approximately between 20 and 30 feet apart. A 7-foot tree. That doesn't reduce anybody's visibility. It doesn't make these disappear. I just think there's a lot of things in these proposed documents that I object to. And I think without a thorough study of some of the impacts to the town that are caused by these documents, that you need to take a pause and figure out what the town wants and what it wants to be going into the future. I ask you to slow down, take an assessment, revise the master plan, and form a commission that can look at some of these details in depth to understand the liability and the risk that the town is taking. And I thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Next is, I'm not sure if it's Gay or Gary Birch.
It's Gay.
Gay, sorry. No address.
3973 Kinder Lane. Thank you, board, for responding to my emails. I appreciate it. It must not be easy going through these documents. I also noticed that the camouflage doesn't sound like it would cover it, especially after 25 years.
Okay, can I ask you to talk to us?
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And as Sean here pointed out, we have stunning, beautiful vistas in Pompey. We have wonderful topography. Our website shows all seasons. It's lovely. And I think I've never heard anybody say how stunningly beautiful a solar farm is. So I'm very much against it. And I don't think my friends and neighbors are for it either. And I have not heard any benefits for our community other than $2,000. And I think we need all voters to benefit in our town, to help it grow in a way that's responsible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is, I think it's Caleb Slater. That.
So I currently,
Eight. Which,
yeah, so I currently live off of 8 Grampian Road and I'm closing on a house Eastwood. But having said that, now I got my time going. The reason why I'm coming here is because,
Where are you from?
so I am not from Pompey, but Pompey falls under my district. I am running for state senate in the district that Pompey falls under. And I've come here tonight to offer solutions for the people of Pompey. Does that make sense?
We really stay away from
It's
politics.
not politics. Well, you stay away from politics. You're having a talk tonight about solar farms in your town. People have come here asking you to listen to them and hear them out about what they feel should happen in their town. How is that not a political matter? You are a supervisor for a town. You are a political job.
It's a town matter, sir. It's not a political matter.
It's not a political
People are
matter.
here because they're concerned about their neighborhood.
Right, exactly. And I'm concerned about the neighborhood here as well. And I've come here to say things that can be done to improve the town of Pompey. This is a political matter.
It's not a political matter.
It's not
If you're gonna make it a political matter, then I'm not sure we want to hear about it, but if you want to comment on solar,
I'm here to talk about solar. I'm here to talk about energy.
I still didn't catch it.
So I just
What's
closed.
your address?
My address is in Liverpool, 8 Grampian Road, Liverpool, New York.
What's your affiliation with the town of Pompey?
My affiliation with the town of Pompey is that I am the state senate candidate running against Rachel May for the New York State Senate. Pompey falls under the district that I'm running in. I want to make sure that I am listening to the issues that people are addressing here tonight. And I just closed on a house in Syracuse, so that's why I am here tonight. Now, may I speak about the issues that people have addressed here tonight after making notes of what people have addressed here tonight, specifically and only relating to Pompey? Please and thank you.
You have the same one.
You got 3 minutes, go ahead.
Okay. So I've come here again to talk about the issues that are relating to the town of Pompey and make sure that people understand that they need to make sure that their voices are heard. Overwhelmingly, people have come here tonight and town boardings before this saying that they don't want this solar farm in this town. They don't want this proposal to go through in this town. And we live in a nation of, by, and for the people where their voices should be heard and should be considered and heard well. Not only is that a concern, but another thing that people in Pompey, when I go door to door and I talk to them, they say that they're concerned with the attacks on their energy. They're concerned with the attacks on their ability to heat their homes. They're concerned with their property rights. They're concerned with what's happening in their neighborhood. And I've come out here today to say that, listen, I am an advocate for Pompey. I am an advocate for the community. I am an advocate like Teddy Roosevelt was for your land. I am an advocate for your ability to be able to heat your home with whatever gas you want, whatever ability you want, and be able to have a town that you feel is beautiful. One of the commodities of upstate New York is its beauty, is its land. Getting rid of the land for solar farms in Pompey would be like getting rid of the Statue of Liberty in New York City. It would be like getting rid of the Empire State Building in New York City. It's never been proposed. It's never been done before. And let me just say this. Every single time we hear a threat on the people of Pompey, it's from people who aren't from here. The people who are proposing to get rid of your ability to heat your home, they're from New York City, they're from Albany, they're from DC. The company that came here today, yeah, they're a company of 12, and sure, they may be doing good work. They're from Connecticut. They don't have to reap the benefits, or excuse me, the pain and the suffering that this community and the people who are living here are going to have to face years down the line. So I have come here to say that you need to make sure that you have a voice heard. The people do not have a voice heard in Albany. When they call your current senator, she doesn't answer your calls. She doesn't answer your emails. She doesn't respond back.
You're getting now, hey, off the top.
If you want to stick to the issue of solar, that's fine, but to get off into politics, we're not going to do that. We already set the
We
parameters.
set the parameters, and the point is that if you come to my office and you say that I'm sick of what's happening at the solar in Pompey, you have an advocate here, right here today, saying, listen to what the people are saying and listen to the community. Thank you for your time.
Definitely. so.
Anita Schmidt Kayanka. 6935 Sevier Road.
6935 Sevier Road. And put down your pitchforks and your torches. I'm the landowner. I've been here 37 years. My husband George, has been here 13 years, right? We are residents of Pompey. It's a tough thing to make this decision. But we need to bridge this gap. We have to get rid of fossil fuels. I mean. Thank you. I'll talk to you people. I believe that the location of Frank Long Road solar array is appropriate. It's obscured from view of the neighbors, and mature trees will remain as part of the border so that you will not see the solar array. It's set back from the road. It's small in scale. It's not 100 acres. It's not 200 acres. How many acres? 30, right? 30 acres. And it also is going to be located on non-tillable land. Our farm is tilled. As much of it can be tilled. It's tilled organic. We're trying to protect people's wells. We're trying to protect stormwater. You know, we're not getting that runoff from our farm. The solar array will provide habitat for pollinators. One of the things that will happen is a meadow for pollinators will be established. We already have Dan Winter has beehives on our property. You know, it's going to benefit those bees. It's going to benefit anybody's gardens that are nearby. Clean energy for nearly 2,000 residents. I think 1,800, I think was the number. It'll go through the Southwood substation. Pompey gets their power from the Southwood substation. So it kind of is for the greater good. We need options to fossil fuels. Climate change, I believe, is real. I think science tells us it's real. Potentially catastrophic. I mean, it's a weather phenomenon that's serious. I feel it's my moral obligation to do what I can to address this issue for our and for future generations. I don't know, sometimes the loudest voice prevails, but I'd like for reasonableness. You know, so that's it. Can I give you this?
Lorraine Alley, 6848 Frank Long Road.
And I'm mostly gonna pass because everybody's covered my points.
That's okay. You have 5 minutes if you want to use. it.
I could.
You're not obligated to.
I think that the only thing I'd like to say, ditto, thank you, Linda. There's a few things I'd like to say, as far as doing your part to agree to
do away with fossil fuels, how is cutting down 30 acres of trees that sequester greenhouse gases, how is that a green thing? Anybody got that's not, I'm sorry, it's just not. I also live on that lovely little plateau where all the rubble ended up after that beautiful rainstorm. And my husband and I were out there 1 to 2 o'clock in the morning trying to clean those drains out, and you saw the Griffin's yard, right? Yeah. It's not an easy, that mountain is anything but easy as far as water flow. It mystifies people digging wells. It mystifies everybody because all the currents change. I would like to have addressed Mr. Dunkel about the SWIP. I'd like to know, was there soil tests done? We all know the amount of silt in that runoff. BR knows. Those detention ponds are going to fill up in 5 to 7 years. Who's gonna dig them out? Is that in a budget? I know this because I have my own pond and my own stream that I had to dig across the top of my property. That water problem on that mountain is not easy. And these are great plans, but we have an awful lot of silt in that runoff. Last thing I'm going to say is my road is collapsing because of all the water. You know it. Okay, so that's it. I mean, this is a no-brainer. This is not this is not green in any way. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Barbara Stacer, 3457 Sweet Road.
Well, it's definitely a tough act to follow tonight with all of the points that have been made by the other residents in the town who I'm just super proud of and proud of their passion and how much everybody is rallying together for a common cause. And it's great to see people in this day and age rallying together for a common cause. There have been a lot of conversations taking place outside of the town board meetings. There are members of the town getting together, forming their own plans, forming their own committees, seeking their own counsel. So this is something that is being taken very seriously. And I'm happy that there's so many people that are here supporting it now, having stood in this position myself just a year ago. It's really hard. I swear Nate and JR were sitting right next to me. I have themes written right here, the different themes that we're seeing between out-of-state companies, the direct impact to home values. And quite frankly, the theme is the town has spoken, and the town has spoken repeatedly that they don't want solar in all of Pompey. So it's not a Frank Long, it's not a Sweet, it's not going to be a number 5 and number 2. It's just not wanted in Pompey. Nate brought up a good point, as did Jane and some others, about vetting of these companies. A big part of that was the bonds. I was going to talk a little bit about that as well. I won't, because they did do such a great job about it. But let's think about that, to that point of the financials and how these bonds are obtained. And not just that, the solvency, potential solvency issues, et cetera. How much are we vetting these companies that are coming into the town of Pompey wanting to put these industrial solar farms here? Are we looking at their financials? Are we looking at the subcontractors we use? They're not here. These 12 people aren't going to be here maintaining it. They're subcontracting it. So who are those people that are coming in? Are they equipped? What is their financials look like? Are they adequately covered? Or are these guys adequately covered? Is Pivot adequately covered? There's a lot of things, I think, that we don't know. And to put it to whoever said before, we're putting the cart before the horse. There's a lot of things here. And one of the things that we're starting to see, and I stood here several times over the last year and talked about health concerns and quality of life concerns and property values and all of that. And a lot of the times that was shot down. But it all takes precedence, and we're starting to see that precedence. And you're hearing that locally here in New York State. You're seeing it in other states throughout the country. And most recently, to address the real estate values and that this wasn't something that could be proven. It is now, in the town of Vernon, not too far from here. I'm sure you're familiar with it, Renee. We're both from Oneida, so it wasn't far from us. They put a solar farm in, and that solar farm is now paying for the loss of property values around it. So we're seeing precedents here starting to take place as well. And I think that to the point of the ROI and the benefit of the town and the benefit of the people, that we really need to be putting that first. To the point of people move here for a reason, people move here for the land, the privacy, the views, all of that. And it seems like that's going to go away. And my last thing, because I did want to call this out as well, was when we talked, when Tim talked about the different, things, the hallmarks that were required for a moratorium. And, Tim says it's case law. Case law is what puts it in our hands. That's what puts it in your hands. It doesn't put it at a different level. You do have the ability to do that. And specifically to hallmark number 2 regarding the influx of applications, it's bound to happen as we're hearing it's happening around us. But what about not even the influx of people from outside of our community? What about the influx of people coming to you from our community that have said this is enough? Because you're getting an influx of letters, meetings, phone calls, emails. That influx should count for something as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carol Ann Porto, 3788 Pompey Center Road.
Hello, I'm Carolyn Porto, 3788 Pompey Center Road. People talk about it's a moral issue. Now, a moral issue doesn't denote money. Okay. People that feel something's a moral issue, they volunteer. Okay, it's free. Now you got to ask yourself, everybody talks about this is so important. We need solar. Okay, so if we need solar and it's so important, it's only here for 25 years, right? That's what the government's paying, 25 years. What happens when they get decommissioned? What do? We need it so desperately. It won't be here. And another thing, they talked about ROI, which is the pittance. The people that it's going to affect their homes, they're going to complain and they're going to want their assessments brought down. I have a lake house in Cape Vincent, and that happened to a lot of the people. They were ready to complain about their assessments. And these people had $1 million homes. Well, they beat BP. It didn't go up. And the farmers, like they were talking about, a lot of them needed the money. And that's who wanted the windmills. Okay. So ask yourself, I don't blame them. Government in the state is giving out all this money. Okay, here you do this, and we're going to pay you to do this. So they start a business. Okay, no different than anybody else that starts a business. But the question is, again, 25 years. Ask yourself, what are we supposed to do? No fossil fuel, no this, no that. We're all depending on electricity and these solar farms. What do? Freeze to death? It's not viable in this area. We have more shade. Those solar panels, what happens to them? They get dirty. What happens to the efficiency? And we do have a place. We have a brownfield. We're all talking about. What are we doing with the dump? Are there homes around the dump? It's a brownfield. Okay, you have toxic areas, let's say, in this town that maybe no homes are around. Why don't we think of that if we're being forced to do it? Brownfields or toxic land that you can't do anything with. And the last thing I have to say is these things are toxic. I don't care what they're telling you. I was a science major at Syracuse, and the science of the day is like the day all of us got married. We hoped we did the right thing. We thought we did the right thing. But what's that little word that tells us if we did the right thing? It's called time. Let's give this some time, and then we'll see where we go after that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Deb Grenier, 2010 Cemetery Road.
Hi, last month we came here and we were told that we were gonna have a pause on the Frank Lawn Solar project. All the board members agreed that they would not consider this project. And then I looked today on the agenda and we're talking about the Frank Lawn Solar. I'm not sure what's going on here. The town has spoken, a lot of letters have been written, meetings have been had about having the moratorium. Jim has told us that we can have a moratorium. If we can't have a moratorium, maybe a repeal of the overlay law that was introduced. The town is clearly against this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stan Gorman, 7154 Sevier Road.
And last one.
Nope, one more.
Just a couple of things personally, let me start off. You kind of called me out on the cemetery stuff. Laney over there is the real heartbeat behind anything that happens in our cemetery for this town. She organized everything. She's doing all the work. I'm just a worker bee that happen to have a couple of neat blowers to help out. Thanks to her for all that she's doing. Secondly, I always maintain this, I fell in love with this town 35 years ago, and you've heard me say this. The community and fellowship and the love that I saw in this town that wants me to stay here and why I'm so active in its politics. I just hope that we can all realize through any issues that we may disagree on certain things. But I think we all are concerned about the town of Pompey and love it dearly and have it at heart. Whether you're on this or this. Going back to the board, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you. I know you do a lot that goes on behind the scenes. As a business owner in this town, there's a lot of people who may benefit from the money that you're talking about. Just thank you for all you're doing. And I know you haven't taken this lightly. Now on to my statements, I guess. If you're looking at moratoriums, you can talk about the towers that I've been a part of. There is precedent there. I just don't know if that will help you in any way. When it comes to the solar issue, the concerns that I have, I keep bringing up. It's just, again, the bonds that we talk about and the decommissioning, because there's nothing there that, we talk about with the towers. Luckily, we're acting on those after long term. The benefits to the town have already been addressed, liability, and then who's going to monitor and enforce the law. Those are my major concerns. I would just ask some of the things that I've kind of heard. Is there any pressure from the state of New York to bring in solar projects to our town? I don't know. It's just a question. And then as an ECC member, I know it's been brought up, other locations, kind of rumor going around is we might have to maybe take a look and recommend some locations that we may come up with. I don't know if that is true or not, but
Have you talked to your chair?
talking to a lot of people, so.
No, I'm.
Not obligated to answer, but just so that I think people know that there are a lot of things going on that they may not be aware of. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Diane? Gene?
No chance.
Let's chance, I'm sorry.
Last but not least.
Yes, last but not least, thanks for listening to me. I'm from 3887 Route 91. I actually live right uphill from probably one of the houses that's most greatly impacted by the runoff from that stream. So one thing I wanted to point out, first of all, was after listening to the solutions, the retention ponds and that, which all sound great, I'm very concerned with the amount of water that they're diverting to the south, because it was mentioned not once or twice, but they're diverting it to the south where water isn't as much of a problem. And I want to point out to you that it is as much of a problem to the south as it is to the north, although maybe it's not on my doorstep, it's not washing out my driveway, it is flooding out everything behind me, everything, my backyard, where I'm trying to put my garden, I mean, and everybody to the south of me as well. And if you divert the water to the south, well, south is uphill from where all the problems are. So now water is going to flow down to that point and then flow downhill to us anyway. So it's not really as great of a solution as maybe it's being presented, I think, without me being an engineer and having studied it. I'm very thankful that I get to go last because I guess what's even a greater concern to me than the runoff at this point, me being a biologist, me being a science teacher, me looking at this as a teaching moment. Consider clear cutting 30 acres of woods. It's a problem on a whole number of scales. It's going to create more runoff of water, but it's also going to, as somebody pointed out earlier, it's not a green solution. If you listen to the studies being done nowadays compared to all these solutions we're trying to come up with, one of the greatest things we can do is to maintain forests. And forests are the climax communities. They're the ones that are going to last on their own forever, So their carbon sinks. They take carbon dioxide out of the air. They're helping to combat global warming, which is why we're building solar panels in the first place. So just realize that I appreciate that you're going to plant wildflowers in that, but that's a whole different ecosystem. Going to create a whole different level of stability, going to support a whole different biodiverse population of organisms. So I want to just end maybe with a quote, something that I teach my kids in my class, and it has to do with biodiversity. And these climax communities, these forests are one of the most biodiverse ecosystems that we can actually view. And if you listen to the experts, they tell you that biodiversity is the #1 resource to help us create sustainability of our planet. So I'm very against cutting down this forest to put in a solar farm. That's ridiculous, so that's not all I have to say. So
Thank you very much.
That's it.
Okay, so we will be adjourning to executive session to.
You have solar things, it'd be a very boring meeting. Nobody would show up. Maybe help.
They gotta read this of a particular person.
I got it.
Yeah.
You're doing another meeting for everybody.
Oh, yeah. And
I forgot. we have to go.
we are back in session, regular session. We made a motion to come out of executive session back in regular session. I would entertain a motion to
I'll
adjourn.
make a motion to adjourn.
All those in favor, aye.
Are you keeping those or do you want to?